Would you like to feel confident in challenging conversations and feel captivating when speaking to an audience? Hmm? Well, today we're going to talk about how to speak up powerfully and create the impact you want in relationships and in the world. So I'd like you to now meet our experts today. I'm Laura Rubenstein, your host and producer here at WSA TV. And let's welcome to the screen, Margie. Hi, Margie.
Good morning, Laura from Australia. I'm Margie McCumstie, and I'm a celebrant, MC, author, and speaker. You can visit margiemccumstie.com.au, and I live in the Hunter Valley region, about 3 hours north of Sydney in Australia.
Wonderful. Great to have you here from Down Under. And hi, Eve.
Hello, my name is Eve Dyer. I'm a personal power coach, an author, and a speaker. My website is www.evedyer.com.au, and I live in sunny Brisbane, Australia.
All right, we got Australia in the house today. I'm super excited to have the wisdom, because I know both of you talk about speaking up powerfully from different points of view, and that's going to make for a really rich conversation here about how to do that. So I thought I'd start with you, Margie. And what advice do you have for our viewers on how to convey powerfully and speak up?
Yeah, I think if you want to be a powerful speaker, the most important thing is to really link into your authenticity and your vulnerability, to be willing to be vulnerable with an audience. It cuts through on a different level. So when people are there and you know, if you give a speech that is all facts and figures and just dry knowledge, it just doesn't touch the person's heart. And you really want to do that. So for something to be transformative and really have that power to change somebody, which is ultimately what we want people to have a cathartic experience sitting in their seat, listening to you, hanging on your words, then you want to make sure that you're cutting through by really connecting with your heart to their heart. And by doing that, it can really make a massive difference. So vulnerability and authenticity, being real, being true, being honest, that's the key to really strong, powerful communication.
And what's the best way to do that on stage?
I think the best way to do that is to look at storytelling, tell things from your life, tell stories from your life, or stories from other people's lives that are inspiring. But also you might have to tell one on yourself. You might have to talk about a time where you went through the troughs of pain or failure, where you came through the other side, where you overcame difficulties and challenges in your life. And sometimes it can be hard to do that because, you know, we all have this thing of wanting to look good and avoiding looking bad. But if you can be prepared to look bad and actually tell one on yourself, really share who you are and who you were in that moment and how you got through it, and really be real, like I think that's very important, then people can really connect with that. It's not some sort of pie in the sky theory. It's not somebody standing up there with a flip chart and it's all cold and passionless. This is somebody actually standing there speaking their truth, and people recognize that, and it can really, like, that really touches them. And I think that's the most important thing, is actually being prepared to be vulnerable. Is just, it's not an easy thing to do. It's quite a hard thing, really. But if you are prepared to be vulnerable and to share deeply through storytelling, through sharing things from your life, then it can really make a difference.
Beautiful. I love that, because that's when you share your transformation in a story format, it's way more powerful than trying to tell people how to transform themselves. And speaking of that, Eve, I wanted to jump over to you and say, okay, well, if you want to speak up powerfully in a challenging, like a situation, like in relationships, what advice do you have for our viewers to speak up powerfully?
Thank you. Margie had so many important strategies in her speech, and I'm only adding to those. When we're in conflict, so an argument, and it's become tense, and you're starting to struggle to speak clearly, a key thing to do is to switch off your fight, flight, freeze system, which is likely switched on. It switches on in 0.025 of a millisecond, the minute we're shouted at or there's a tone in someone's voice. And that prevents us from using the big smart brain, which is what we need when we're trying to get our message across or challenge someone who's being abusive or doing anything that's untoward. So to switch off the fight, flight, freeze system, it's actually really easy. And the more you do it, the more it'll even come to mind before you think about it. So the fight, flight, freeze system pumps adrenaline and cortisol through our body, and it activates in 0.025 of a millisecond. It's our protector, but sometimes we need to dampen it. So to do this, take a slow, deep breath in. You could even do it now if you like and see how it feels. And then let the breath out slowly. And as you continue to breathe with your slow, steady breath, count 1, 2, 3, 4 with your in-breath and 1, 2, 3, 4 with your out-breath. And in a short time, you'll notice that you've got your brain is clear, you're thinking clearly again, your body doesn't feel agitated, it's settled but powerful, and you'll be able to focus on what you need to say.
That's powerful. I think a lot of people just get in the habit of reacting without breathing from that fight or flight. It takes practice, I would imagine. Would you agree?
It's wonderful to practice because you need it to be almost automatic when someone has this first shout at you. So to be able to have it automatic, the more you practice it, you won't have to first have the shock and then remember, I can feel fight, flight, freeze in my whole body. Do the breathing. And really, no one can notice it. You're just controlling that slow, even breathing, and the body will react to support you.
Yeah, I love this idea of being more connected to our bodies. And like Margie, you were saying, more connected to our story and our vulnerable feelings. So this is very useful information to how to speak up powerfully, whether you're in front of a stage and you've got that fight or flight on stage, or you got the fight or flight when you're in a challenging conversation. So incredible wisdom. I want to learn a little bit more about each of you and your expertise. So Margie, why don't you tell us, what do you do? Who do you do it for? And what do you do?
Okay, so I'm a celebrant, and in America, I think they call that an officiant. So I perform weddings, naming days, and funerals. And a few years ago, my dad died, and I actually had the great honor of preparing my dad's funeral before he died. So I got to read it to Dad the day before he died. It was exactly pretty much 24 hours before he died. I read him the entire ceremony, so he knew how he was going to be remembered. And that New Year's Eve, I thought, okay, I want to write a book and dedicate it to my dad. So I did that. And after I wrote the book, I then went on to do to promote the book and do book launches and speeches about my book. And I shared about my dad and my story with Dad. And that was really special and important. Anyway, there was a lady in the audience whose mother was dying of terminal cancer. And she asked me, she was really touched by what I said because of that vulnerability and authenticity that I could share so openly about something that's quite hard, it's quite an emotional subject, obviously, but I shared about my dad, I shared about his death, I shared about the whole experience of getting to the honor of performing my dad's funeral. And and then she came up to me and she said, Margie, my mum's dying, and would you be able to come and work on her funeral with her so she knows how she's going to be remembered? And so I had the great honor of doing that for her. And that came about from her hearing me speak and knowing what it is that I do and why I do it. And storytelling is a massive part of that. So I got to go with her, listen to the stories of her life, and then share them in a way so that it really acknowledged her life story. And then a few weeks later, when she did die, I got to share those stories with her family in a way that really honored her and honored her life. And that's the power of storytelling. And that all came about because I was willing to be vulnerable and authentic on stage, sharing a deeply personal time with my father's death.
Beautiful. Wow, what a difference you're making. Thank you.
Thank you.
With the power of storytelling in particular. And Eve, why don't you share with us about what you do and who you do it for, and maybe a story of how you helped someone.
Thank you, Laura. I was a clinical psychologist in private practice for 20 years, but have retired from that. And prior to that, for 35 years, I worked in the information technology industry. But most of that time, and 12 years in particular, I was the project director or the project manager, and I was sent in to recover massive projects that were going off the rails at huge cost and risk to the companies. So I've been in these situations of high pressure, high conflict, and you don't know where the next problem is coming from. So what I do is help women, I did in my practice and now ongoing, how they can speak and act powerfully at home and at work and in the community and in family gatherings, especially around Christmas, it seems. First of all is to learn how to detect when someone is manipulating, trying to control you, doing subtle or very obvious bullying, to first be prepared for it, because using that, settling the fight, flight, freeze again, we'll have the first alarm in our system when we're shouted at or wrongly accused or criticized very, very harshly. Get ourselves steady, and then identifying what they're doing, we can call them to account. So we're doing this in a very controlled way. You have no right to say what you said to my son. You are now going to leave this house. It can be anything, but with that slowed down, clear mind, instead of being shouted at and becoming fearful and losing control of the situation, you do the opposite. And it is very surprising. I've had some very angry people in my clinic rooms, usually when they were the partner of the person I was treating who was getting stronger. And they came in there to just rip into me about how I was ruining their wife. Well, you see, I stay very calm and very focused, but my eye contact just shows how determined I am and how they're not going to win if they try and bully me. So those are the things they can be in your toolkit that you can use in any situation, and you can use them at a gentle level for a child that needs a bit of disciplining, all the way up to being assaulted in a situation, verbally assaulted, emotionally assaulted. You being clear, standing in your own personal power and speaking all that you have the right to say as the individual you are.
I love how you empower people, both of you, and especially in challenging situations, especially when we have habituated other patterns. And so being vulnerable, being clear, standing in your power, rich advice today to how to speak up powerfully. Thank you both. But this is what we do here at Women Speakers Association. We bring you, such a rich group of women who are doing powerful, transformative work in the world. And I know that both of you have been here with Women Speakers Association. You came for a reason, and I want to know, what is the value that you are receiving? So Margie, would you share with us?
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to be in a community of strong, powerful women like Eve. Eve, what you've shared today about, I guess what you're talking about is having a moment to assert your boundaries. And I think that's really important. And to hear that advice, it can be just one little takeaway about reminding yourself that you can have that moment to take the breath and to count and to be able to release that and then come from a place that's not fight, flight, or freeze. And I just think there's some really powerful advice and information that you can get. And that's Women Speakers Association has been a wealth of moments and advice like that, where whether it's just listening to or watching the WSA TV or going to some of the events, it's about surrounding yourself with other incredible women, recognizing that you yourself are incredible as well, and then finding out about opportunities or creating opportunities together for speaking and for spreading our message and changing the world.
Yes, we are changing the world for sure. And I love that you love collaborating here. And for those of you watching, if you want to do what Eve and Margie have done and become premier members, definitely join us. You might start with our Speaker Success Plan at speakersuccessplan.com, or check out the membership at joinwsa.com. And Eve, I want to hear from you as well. I was like, what's the value of Women Speakers Association for you?
I was lost in how to publicize and promote the book that I wrote, Ignite Your Power, Unmasking the 5 Faces of Anger, which is exactly how women can understand what's not working and then build the skills and then become all that they can be. But I had no idea. And the professionalism and the generosity of what Women Speakers Association does, and the online webinars with people from around the world, the ideas and the richness of what I've learned. And it's made me value myself more. Before, I was just a small voice, and I wasn't sure how important my message is, although I have helped people. But WSA, Women Speakers Association, have helped me put all of that together and take steps to get things ready and prepared and know how to present. I'm eternally grateful. I learn every single time I attend, just as I've learned here from both the speakers and always their wise insights. So yes, it's a precious part of my being the person I am, and in particular, presenting and helping women to be all that they can be.
Well, thank you. We love that you are part of this community as well. And your voice matters, your message matters. I mean, today's show was all about how to speak up powerfully, and both of you do that in the world, and you show other people how it's possible for them. You offer your services to them. You offer your heart and your vulnerability, Margie, like you talked about. And we also do that through the book, Voices of the 21st Century. And every year, 50 authors come together, and we're taking applications now at voicesofthe21stcentury.com to add to another way we can get your voice out there, because this live stream is going to be fleeting. People are going to watch it once, but the book stays on the shelf and can be accessible at any time of day or night, whenever you need a bit of inspiration. So the community is rich of ideas, of inspiration, of people like yourselves. And please join us. And thank you, Eve. Thank you, Margie, for being here, for being the wonderful transformational beings that you are in the world. And we will be back next week with another Women Speakers Association's WSA TV show with more of our awesome premier members. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're off.
Yay.
I will